Oki, Senadapi, welcome to Native Wellness Institute's Power Hour. We're coming to you live from Fairbanks, Alaska, where all of the villages from Doyon Corporation are meeting in the other room. So, Oki, Nistu Nidaniko Makoyo Sakoyi. I will be your facilitator for the next hour or so. I come from Nistu Amskapi Pikani, Nistu Sixikea Tipi, Blackfoot Confederacy. I come from, it's good to see you, Charlotte. We're just coming to you live from Alaska. I come from the Blackfoot Confederacy. I live right on the border below Nenastico Chief Mountain on Lower St. Mary's Lake. And so but I'm up here in Alaska, and Native Wellness Institute, we want to invite you to several things that are happening like in the near future. One of the things that I just have to highlight, we want to invite you to our men's gathering in May. Our team members, Gene Tagabon and Josh Cocker, will be facilitating that Native men's healing at Barbie's Village in Portland. You can go to our site. The other thing that we want to invite you to, and that's I'm here in Alaska, is we want to invite you to the Healing the Spirit Worldwide, which will be September 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 in Vancouver, British Columbia. You can take a ferry up from Seattle. And then there's several things we want to invite you to because Native Wellness Institute, we have our Wellness in the Workplace and Self-Care on Bainbridge also in September. So that go to our site. And so we want to make sure that we also have, like next week, we're doing healing the April 11th and 12th. We still do Zoom. And because a lot of people are still, we're not quite out of the pandemic, but they just prefer to do Zoom. And so you can go and register and come and be with us. But let me tell you why Native Wellness Institute is in Alaska this week. I'm walking around. This is a well-known, it's called Wedgwood Resort. And it's a place where, boy, in the summertime, it's booked, and it's, millions of tourists come here. But right now, I'll just give you, this is looking out. This is the amount of snow, and that has to be shoveled so you can walk. And we're out by the gazebo, and so that's where our gathering is happening. And so we're going to have some guests stop by. Because when we go places, we really like to hear it from the people who live there, and we like for them to tell the story. And Native Wellness Institute, the reason we're here is because, since 1990, we've come here to work in Venati, Circle, Old Minto, Fort Yukon, Tanana, Chalkitsik, Nome, Barrow. So, and we have like Shirley Holmberg, and who has been helping with sobriety for 37 years straight. We have some grandmas here who have 30 years sobriety. But then we also have our brothers and sisters who have 6 months or less than a year, and they're also with us because we want to, first of all, not shame anyone, especially if they're still drinking and using, or they just in treatment. We want to welcome them because the door is open for everybody to heal. So April, it's interesting, April is Sexual Assault Awareness Month. It's also Child Abuse Prevention Month. And it's also explore your vibrators and dildos for spiritually transmitted diseases month. We call it Healthy Sexuality Month. And so, that's just my humor coming from Res Dogs, and that character Priscilla, she just jumps out here every once in a while. So, I wanted to, what are we doing here? And welcome to, this is Wellness Wednesday. And for those of you who know, Native Wellness Institute started 3 years ago, exactly 3 years ago, and we went on 7 days a week. And then we went 5 days a week, and now we've gone to Wellness Wednesday. And so we usually broadcast from where we are. So I'm in Fairbanks, Alaska, and we brought all of the villages who work with healing with families. They're now in the back room. We're looking at brain development with trauma. And so that is like a beautiful thing right now, because we have Gwich'in people who, I was just visiting with Sister, and she said that they start before, soon as the woman finds out she's pregnant. And so this is, for you out there, it's about self-regulation and healing. And if a child under 6 years old has had trauma, or you have had trauma, how do we do the healing? But she was telling me that when you find out you're pregnant, you start beating the belt for that child, and it takes 9 months to bead that belt that you give to that child when they're born. And then I was just thinking, about the placenta ceremonies. The placenta ceremonies, one of the healing things, don't let them, even the umbilical cord, there's umbilical ceremonies. There's a cradle board ceremonies. There's wrapping baby ceremonies. There's all of this essential, peaceful, kind ways to bring human beings into the world. And if for some reason it's because the brain is still developing all, till you're 25 years old, but those first 6 years of life are very critical because of higher brain and lower brain. And like when kids, just think about it, the one I really love is lullabies. And in lullabies, they're soothing while in utero, while the baby is developing. They're in utero, and you just sing to your baby. They can, my daughter, her grandmother had taught me this lullaby, and she was a stick game player, and it's called, it goes kind of like this. Ickaboola, Ickaboola, hey ha, Ickaboola, 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 hey ha, Ickaboola. And then you take the baby's eyes, and you're putting them to sleep, and you close their eyes. And if this is the ritual that you do every evening, babies are usually just really, really comfortable, and they sleep well, because sleep hygiene is very important for the wellness. So we're going to have our first guest on Wellness Wednesday. And I've asked, we have movers and shakers up here. We got a whole room full of them. Like from, 15 years old to 100 years old, it seems like. So our first guest, and we met several times, but we were in New Orleans with the sex trafficking conference in New Orleans. 400 women showed up who wanted to stop the violence against women. So I'm going to ask Kristen, would you introduce yourself and tell us what you're doing in Alaska?
Yes. Hi. My name is Kristen Moreland. I am from Fort Yukon, Alaska, which is 131 miles north of Fairbanks, Alaska. I'm the executive director for Healing Native Hearts Coalition, which is a domestic violence and sexual abuse coalition. We have 19 coalitions in the United States, 2 is in Alaska. We have 42 villages that we serve, and it's nice to see you, everyone.
Love, and we'll just kind of sit here because I want to ask her some questions.
Okay.
Because can you tell us, you have 3 days, there's 3 days here and there's 3 days of healing. We began yesterday with prayers. We began with a blanket. It was like a historical trauma walk down of feelings and healing of the spirit. So can you just describe like what you were envisioning with this 3 days and tell us what's going on here?
Yes, so I envisioned us to be together, to collaborate with a bunch of other organizations here so we can be together. It's called Stronger Together Summit, and I wanted to have us be in a space where we can heal together as a family, as all of our villages come together. Our villages do not have regular travel. We can't just get there from a road. So we have to fly in on a little tiny airplane to come to the hub city near them. Some of our villages had to fly to Anchorage and then Anchorage to Fairbanks, which is very costly, which I think it was like $1,000 for a one way. Yeah, and it's really hard for them to get here, but they did get here. We have 36 people from our villages that came, and we're all feeling healing. So my eyes are puffy right now because we have traditional healers on site, and they go in from the inside out and they heal your body, and I just got out of it right now, so I'm very tired feeling.
Oh no! And so I'll give you a pause, because I had the same treatment yesterday, and I got up at 5:30 because I'm on Mountain Standard Time, and we were just so filled with healing all day long. And then I went and they call it Reiki, but the woman is named Heather, and I call her Heather Feather. Heather Feather, and she laid me down, and when there's some touch, but what she did was I went into a different realm. I floated back to my home, to my driveway and my favorite tree, and I floated back there. And then I went somewhere else where I just was totally relaxed and totally dreaming, like dream healing. And then I came back, and so Christian, so tell us what else is going on in your conference, because you could tell both of us were just like, oh my God, so much is happening here in our mind, body, and spirit. So tell us what else is going on in your conference.
Okay, so right now we have a lady named Linda Chamberlain who is going over brain resilience and how to release stress and how trauma affects us from childhood till now and till we're older, and where she's going over the ACEs score. And this afternoon, we decided to have Theda for self-care because we really need that. In every step of our way of life, we need self-care. And I thought Theda would be the best person. And she is. Since she's been here, I've been noticing a lot of things about myself. Inside of me, I know that I'm growing, and every day is a learning curve. Every day is growth for me. So I am very happy that she's going to be presenting on self-care. And tomorrow is our last day, and we are going to be going over Alaska, the fentanyl response.
Yes.
We seen a lot of our villages overdosing on fentanyl, and so the lady that's going to present is going to be doing an hour and a half how to do prevention and the shot, what is it called? Narcan. Yes, she's going to go over that. Yeah. And we don't have any health care in our villages. We have like a health aid, but we don't have first response where they could just come and pick them up from an ambulance. So that the lady is going to teach our villages how to respond to that, and anyone could be able to respond. So that's going to be very good for our villages.
Okay. And can you tell us about the beading and the
Yeah.
fish? There's all the traditional ways of mindfulness is going on too. Can you
Yes.
describe that? Yeah.
So we have a lot of cultural activities here. We have 6 elders who are guiding us. We are doing beading, we are necklace making, caribou tufting, which is caribou hair we sew onto skin, and we cut the fur around so it looks like a beautiful flower with caribou hair, dyed caribou hair. And we also have net
Making, yeah, like the fish for
mending.
fishing.
Yes. So we have Andrew Huntington from Galena that traveled here with his wife. He's deaf, so he's been teaching us with his wife, and it's been so beautiful because he thought he couldn't do it. So when he got here, he was teaching us, and he was doing it. He's amazing. So all the teachers, all the elders, everyone that is gathering here for cultural healing is actually healing, and I'm just so excited.
So anyway, badass auntie, we always we want to know who you are, where you came from, how long you've been sober. Are you a recovering womanizer? Are you a recovering manizer? All of those kinds of things, because this is a place where healthy relationships are coming together. And so we have a couple other guests who came into the room, and so I'm going to invite them one by one. And is there anything else you want to say about your efforts here in Fairbanks or any of the villages, out to our audience, because they all want to know how we're healing in Alaska?
Yes. We have been struggling with our cultural for a long time. We're trying to get that back. So that is making us heal. All of our bringing culture back and our tradition, our traditional values. We are healing from that. So I just want to be able to share stories, bring people with a lot of knowledge to our villages, because they can't get to us, so we are bringing it to them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So thank you, Kristen.
Yes.
And then I'm just going to invite my other 2 guests up one by one. I'll walk towards you, whoever wants to go first. When you're working in Alaska, I started working here in 1990. In 1990, when I first came up here, I really learned that the colonizers had started in the East Coast, and by the time they got here, they had become skillfully genocide doers. And I came to Alaska, it was like 1990, and I looked at the state is like 1/5 of the United States. And when I looked at it, it was over here were the Episcopals. Over here were the fundamental Christians. Over here was the Methodists. They just took it like a puzzle piece, and they came in and they colonized. And so I just want to say, so some of what's happening in 2023 is an attempt to uncolonize for Alaska Native people. But my 2 guests, I'm gonna have them introduce themselves, and I asked them to come and speak because they've been in the United States in a more global healing movement, and we've known each other for 35 years. And we're the old G's. We're the old G's. And being the old G's, my qualifiers is more than 50 years in Alateen and Al-Anon. But I'm still a sick codependent. I'm still working. I'm not healed. I still go to meetings. I still have a sponsor. I still get relationships. But I'll tell you, the relationships have been good ones. Not like when I was 30 years old. I was an adrenaline junkie, so I had to have bad boys. When you want bad boys, you are an adrenaline junkie because you want trauma and you want chaos. And you don't even know it. Anyway, you guys that watch Reservation Dogs, watch this season. It is some adrenaline junkie stuff. Yeah. So our next guest, we knew each other when she used to work for White Bison. And some of us, we work for organizations and then we morph into other organizations or we move. NWI is my day job, but there's many, many things that we do in our life. But Marcia, would you please introduce yourself and whatever? I can hold this or you can hold this because we're just okay. So would you please introduce yourself and our topic is how we're healing in Alaska.
Okay. Mitakeape, Imachepi, Tashina Lutawin, Red Shawl Woman, my name given to me by Pansy Hawkwing of my Hunka Lakota family. My Christian name, if you will, is Marcia Jean Thomason Ose. I live here in Fairbanks. I'm the Fairbanks Reentry Coordinator. And what I do is help gather together agencies that support men and women that are coming home from being justice involved and incarcerated.
And so that's, I have learned, I always have to tell when I was locked up. Okay. So when I got locked up because of computers, no. One state started talking to another. In California, I got a DUI. And then in Nevada, I got a DUI. And I was already sober. And I didn't even live there. But the computers started talking to each other. And there was a law that you had to be locked up for 10 days for those DUIs. And so I got a lawyer. And so my lawyer worked it out so that I would fly from South Dakota and I would go to prison. Okay, so I'll make it short because we got a couple of guests here. So I went to prison 5 miles out of Reno, Nevada. I was sober. And when you go into prison, you don't change the rules. The Indian women were with the Indian women and so on and so forth. But it was such a good meeting being in prison because they were working on the beginning of their healing. Some of them took the rap for their men. You know how that is. Oh, yeah. You guys out there, you're taking the rap for your men.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Don't do it.
Give that crap up.
Because anyway. They got another one they're writing letters to and another one sending them money. So don't do it. They ain't coming back.
Okay. So this is, anyway, I go in there and the part I want to share with you is the freedom. Is I was sober. And so then I made sure I slept well. I made sure I didn't eat things that weren't good for me. I made sure that I exercised. So I can see why you get buffed in there. I was like running in circles. I think I ran like 5 miles every day in my cell. That's why badass auntie is bad. Anyway, long story short is my family had dropped me off. And I said, you just drop me off. I don't need anything because they look in all the holes. They do, and it's not romantic. Mm-mm. They look in all your vagina. They look at where you poo-poo. They look in your ear. They look everywhere. And I said, just drop me off and come get me when we're done. I'm cool. So I get released a day early.
For a good time.
And then there was no cell phones or none of that. So my freedom, I was already sober, is I had to skip to Reno. It was 5 miles. So I was like skipping to Reno. We're off to see the wizard, the wonderful Wizard of Oz, to see, because I was sober. And I was cleaning up the wreckage of my past. And that was one of, the wreckage of the past. And now I could get my license back.
Right on.
That is like a major step. So, Marcia, tell us more. How do people get locked up here? What about this racism? As soon as I got off the plane, some white guy pushed me. And badass auntie don't react because I'm in recovery. So I stood there, composed myself, and I started praying for him. And I went, whew, I prayed for him. Anyway, how come there's so many dang natives locked up in Alaska? What's going on here? And talk about the healing, because we only have an hour, so we don't.
Okay.
Okay. Tell us more, Marcia.
Well, what I'll say is my experience with jail started at about 5 or 6, and I kept the envelope for the bail money for my mom and my stepdad. So jail was really normal for me, and it seemed like that's where family was. So then when I became a teenager and I started getting locked up, and then as an adult I got locked up, my grandma used to say it was where she would go to rest. And everybody I knew was in jail. So after I got sober in '88, I started working in jails. And I think I've done more time in my life clean and sober the last 36 years than I did ever. I mean, I purposely go to jail. The banging doors don't scare me. But what I saw here when I came to Alaska was an inordinate amount of Native people that were related, that were incarcerated here. And I would see a non-Native person and a Native person with the same exact charge, but the Native person would get a longer sentence.
Oh.
And I also saw people that had family names, that if this was a family name, if they came across you in the community, you might end up being in there. So you might have 4 or 5 people that are all related in there.
Yes.
So for jail here, there is a lot of that familial recognition, and there's safety in there. But, for me, I think that's where the healing begins. I've had so many men and women tell me if I hadn't come to jail, I probably would have died, because that was where they got clean. They got sober.
Yeah.
They were in there long enough for their brains to start healing. And then the programming, they could start going to programming.
Yes.
And some of the smartest people I know are incarcerated, and they're hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for culture. And one of the things that was happening when I first came up here in the 90s is there were potlatches happening in the jail. There were cultural activities. There were drum groups that were going in there. And it was a pretty robust program. And our other guest, Carol, can talk a little bit about it, because she was actually working in there as well. But then COVID hit, and they sort of pulled us all out. And for reentry and inreach, I was in there 4 to 5 days a week doing all different kinds of groups. And I had wait lists. I had 8 to 16 week wait lists for men that wanted to come in and do the Healing Trauma and Exploring Trauma by Stephanie Covington. And they wanted to understand more about substance use. And they were really interested in the brain and like what's going on and why am I this way. And I did a batterers intervention group in there as well for 3 years. COVID hit and they stopped it all. The only thing that they would allow in was faith-based programming.
Oh my God! So when COVID hit, then and that looking at each state, because in our state we have a women's prison, and they just lock our women up and lock our men up. So when COVID hit, people weren't paying attention to the rules. Remember what happened January 6th?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Right? And now, now they're paying attention to the rules again. So, Marcia, how do people in Alaska that have been locked up heal?
Well, one of the things that we started 6.5 years ago was the reentry case management program. And so I would start working with folks about 90 days from the gate. And we would get a plan in place of everything they were going to need: doctor's appointments, clothing, housing, a job, interviews, things like that. We would start looking. And so then when they hit the streets and they came to my office right after, or sometimes before, they went and checked in with their PO, we would already have a plan in place. We would already have landlords we were going to go see. We already had employers we were going to go connect with. We already had treatment set up for them to go and get their assessments or start their one-on-ones if they wanted to do that. If they were a beneficiary of Tanana Chiefs, we could connect them that way to Chief Andrew Isaac. And what I did was I would go with them to these appointments, because after you're locked up for a really long period of time and you come back out into the world, it's very shocking. And you're used to being in this really confined area, and you come out, even to go to a Safeways is really overwhelming, or to go to a store. And so I would go shopping with them. I would go to their doctor's appointments with them. I would help them make a list of everything that they wanted to ask the doctors or the counselors. we would make sure that the counselors they were going to knew everything they'd already done while they were in jail, so they didn't have to come out and start all over again, because that, you're not honoring and recognizing the recovery and the work they've done while they're incarcerated. So, why not honor that? Plus honor the people that are in there giving their time doing the classes. So and trying to connect them up to cultural activities that are going on. I wanted to start a movement here in Fairbanks where once a month we would have a welcoming home potlatch.
Ooh.
Where we would wipe them down.
Yeah, now think about that. Welcoming home. Welcoming them home from prison, welcoming them home from treatment, welcoming them home from so many, even when they get a divorce, I like to welcome them to re-exploring their new self. Yeah. When couples decide to stay together and try to work it out, we welcome them home to the new chapter of the relationship. Right. When they are clean off of methamphetamine for a while, we welcome them home to their brain. I mean, to their brain, so that they could have peace and serenity and not just like, people that cut themselves. They do it because they can't feel. They slice their arms because they can't feel, and they want to feel. And so Marcia, before we call Carol Rose up, tell me what has worked for you as an Indian person, because what has helped you heal as a woman? Please just tell me that.
Well, I was deeply immersed in 12-step programs, and as I followed, I was very anti-God because I was raised in a Western tradition of hellfire and brimstone, Southern Baptist. Sorry, Grandma and Grandpa. But we just sang. We were taken to church and we sang and we learned we were little sinners. And so then as I was in the 12-step program, I got to develop my own understanding of a higher power. And so as I started to do that and I started to explore, I started to be exposed to people that had participated in ceremony. I'm only half, and so I was raised in a Western way. I was never raised on a reservation like my dad was. And so I started meeting people that were in ceremony, and pretty soon, the next thing I knew, I was supporting at Sundance, and then the next thing I knew, I was in Sundance, and Inipi, and learning how to do Azia and things like that. And so that is what has helped me, is to be able to embrace the blood of many nations that runs through my brain and all the ceremonies. I had a sponsor that made me do an exercise and look at everything that every bloodline had in common, look for the similarities. And what I found when I looked back is they were very clannish. They all had plants that they used. There was ceremony that they used. They all had some sort of sweat or steam or ceremony in that way. There was a way they cleaned themselves off. There were specific foods. And so that is what has helped me.
Oh my gosh, and so Marcia and I, like when you travel, I always look for the sober people. When I go somewhere, no matter what I'm doing, I always look up the ones that are working a program. You got to walk the talk, and it's not the rest of you. You can't be walking the talk and you ain't doing nothing about growing. And so one of our next guest, but we were just learning the brain development in utero and the brain development up to 6 years old, and that is still happening at 6 years old, and for some of us up to 25 years old. And so we know the science and everything that we know, if you're drinking and using, you have stopped your growth. You are at a place in your brain where you are just operating, I call it Nomsky, like a lizard. That's how you say it in Blackfoot. It's a holy animal, but that's where you're operating. So we encourage you, once you start, that's why they say don't get in a relationship that first year in sobriety. That's why they say don't do much change because you're emerging into a new person. You're emerging into a new being. And that's why you have 50-year-old women getting sober at 40 and acting like teenagers. Eh? I mean, and that's why we like res dogs, because, right, so they're at all different places, and it's a good thing. So our next guest, I just wanted to, Carol Rose and I, we're like the old G's that we were in Missoula, Montana, and they told us that they were going to start to heal from adult of children and that had grown up in an alcoholic home. And back then, 88, 89, 90, it was called NANACOA, the National Association of Adult Children of Alcoholics. And it's coming back around, because where the 12-step groups or the support groups is that no matter what your trauma has been, that you got to go with ones. Just like, right now, one of the young people speaking to me yesterday, her father died 4 years ago. And so we had a whole session on rites of passage, and that rite of passage when you lose a parent. Because the only one that understands is ones who have already lost a parent. People who still have their parents can't understand. So you got to ally, and you got to hear their story of how they got better, how they carry on the legacy, how they have a memorial, how they just like being here, I always, I walk through, when I first walked into this hotel, I smelled sweetgrass, and no sweetgrass is burning, and I don't think they were burning. So I knew that there were ancestors in the room. But our next guest, we met at NANACOA, and then we periodically see each other every 5 years, and we check in. But I really trust her. I trust her because she'll call me on my bullshit. And the same, you gotta get people who aren't just gonna be nice and that they're love you up, but that are just gonna say, hey, blah, blah, blah. And that mirror, it's like that mirror back your wellness. And so you got to surround yourself with those who love you, because we love each other. We loved each other all since we met. You got to mirror back to that person. Like, I've been traveling and eating a lot. My belt got tight. And so I have my friends that say, oh, I notice your belt's kind of tight. So I say, shut up. No. I know it's tight. That's why it has a whole bunch of holes. Anyway, Carol, you've been up in Alaska for how many years now?
I've been up here since 1986, on and off for about 20 years altogether.
About 20 years.
Altogether, yeah.
So what we'd like to hear is, what do you think what needs to happen moving forward in Alaska? Or what did we need to take a look at in these past 20 years? Because we're keeping it on Alaska.
Okay.
Connected to lower 48. Yeah. So
Okay.
first introduce yourself.
Yeah.
Isn't she
Okay.
badass? Look how badass she is. She's a badass. Okay.
Okay, my name's Carol Rose, and my maiden name is Janice, and I'm originally from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. I started traveling a lot when I got into my sobriety, and so I've been part of the sobriety movement since 1983. And I've lived up in Alaska since 1986, on and off. I've been up here for about 12 years this last time. So what I've seen and what I've noticed, and my head was spinning when I first came up here in 87 and joined the Native Sobriety Movement, and Doug and Amy Modig were a big part of that. I spent time talking with them. And my uncle Phil Lane Jr. was up here, and I was just in awe of what I was seeing of the people, gathering and talking about recovery, and it was just taking off then. What I've noticed now is I'm so happy to see that we're having this conference here, Healing Native Hearts and the Alaska Native Women's Association, and that more natives are gathering and they're taking ownership and they're making the agenda and bringing people in. But what I've noticed in the last, I would say the last 12 to 15 years are, we seem to have gone back to the paper cutter,
no worries.
cutter, programs, and we're so mandated because of the funding and where we get the funding by the state, and we're only allowed to do certain things. So it's like they push the Native people back out again, and I think that is so sad, because we have strength and we have healing, and we can heal ourselves.
You know, Carol, before I let you continue, what when I came in here, one of the things I saw with the millennials here are badass. They are respectful. They are following protocols, but they're at a place where they're not as damaged as we were. And I just, because I see, you know, mothers in our room back there, they're meeting right now. I saw them in, you know, their cuspics. I saw them with how they were nursing and taking care of their children, how they were gently. I just saw this gentleness. And then when I talked to them, they're just a couple years in their sobriety. There's almost like and you know, Carol Rose, you said something really important, is the systems we're in. Because I'll tell you, this Alaska, God damn you. God damn you for what you've done to Native people. I think you should have a sit down with Badass Auntie and some tea. Because there is such a ism, a sexism, a racism, a classism, that we need to come back to basics. And I think that's the beauty of the pandemic. That's the beauty of being locked up. I call it God's house. When you're locked up, you're in God's house. So Carol Rose, and it's tell us about your healing, because you know she's a badass, and I respect her because she's a Native woman that's maneuvered up here, down there, traveled. Tell us maybe a little bit about when you first got sober. Tell us some of your story. You know, is that okay? You don't have, you don't have to name all of them. Eh? No. So we're just gonna listen to some of Carol's story.
Okay, so my story, I only drank for four and a half years, and I stopped when I was of age to start drinking. I mean, I started young, and I lived in Pine Ridge, and I lived on the La Jolla Reservation in California, so I was back and forth between both. And at that time, drinking was really part of the culture back then, and so I didn't know that there was such a thing as happiness and sobriety, really, except for what I saw from my grandma. She always was sober and happy and beautiful. So, but I thought this was the way to be. This is what you did if you were Native. You were supposed to be able to drink and handle it. And I could never really handle it, so I kept drinking to practice so I could eventually I was going to learn to handle it. And so my aunt got into recovery through a 12-step program, and she was a role model for me. And she talked about the program, and then I ended up getting into the 12-step program. Not that I wanted to go, I was taken there and kind of pushed in the door by people to help me. Okay, and so after that, I keep looking at this, so I'm not used to talking now. So after that, I was in the program. This year is going to be 40 years for me, but I really attended a lot of meetings, and I went back to the culture too. So I went to sweat lodges, and I got with the elders, and I talked to a lot of people. And that's what I continue to do today. But one of the things that helps me most is to continue working with other people that need help and support, and getting into the field of wherever there's a gap in our community where we need help in healing. I seem to be pulled in. It's like I get pulled in that direction because I feel like I can offer something because of having, been sober. And so right now I am working for the Teju Behavioral Health, and it's Dot Lake, and they're developing their own program. So they're letting us develop a women's program for domestic violence, and we're really urging them to let us have a men's component, because we see a lot of the funding going towards women, but if we don't help the men too, we're not going to resolve what's going on, and have some parenting. And so I don't know if I told you a lot about my recovery, but I pray. I spend a lot of time with my family, and they're my priority. My family, my grandson. I have one grandson.
Ooh, tell us
And
about
so
him. Tell us
He
something.
is.
Yeah, I know.
He's beautiful. He's 12, tall, got long hair, and he's an Alaska native, part native in Alaska. He's Aleut. He's Caddo and Wichita from his grandpa's side, and from my side, he's Oglala Lakota. So he's just very beautiful and really upbeat. And he teaches me a lot about things. Like, I was frustrated with cleaning the other day, and he came in and he goes, "Grandma," he goes, "I think you need a hug." And so and it just calmed me down. And he's got a really beautiful spirit, and I just love that.
Oh, no.
And so that's me right now, and I'm not used to speaking on camera, but thank you for
No, that's it. And just stand right where you are, because I can put you in the frame.
Okay.
And I invited the sisters to come because Native Wellness Institute, we're inviting you more and more to come and join us. And if you call it wellness, if you call it wellbriety, if you call it boys in braids, out in San Francisco, we had 200 women. It's called they called it Indigenous Matriarchs. And so I'm giving my sisters some time just to settle, because one of the things that the three of us do is mindfulness. Mm-hmm. And so I'm letting them get mindful. And I was just thinking this today, why do I come to Alaska? And I think it's because one of my mothers was named Orpha Abaluk from Nome. Mm. And she met my Uncle Charlie Newbreast at the TB Sanitarium in Tacoma, Washington. Mm-hmm. And they both lived, they both survived the tuberculosis, and they fell in love. Oh. And they were teenagers. And they fell in love, and it was a great love, because they made 5 of my 60 first cousins. They made Lynn, they made Charlotte, they made Anthony, they made Little Charles, and they made Mona. But Auntie was the one who taught me how to sew. And man, I was like, I might have been 2 or 3, but she had a needle, and she taught me how to sew. And I learned other from my other grandmas and stuff. But what she did teach me, this is my badass auntie likes raw fish.
Yeah.
It's like Mummy and Blackfoot. But Orpha taught me how to eat. She would eat raw fish, and so I grew up eating raw fish. That's why I like sushi. But just when I came here, Kristen, who you met earlier, and we're going to go back and meet all of our gathering, is she gave me 12 pounds of moose meat. So you know what? I baked it. I boiled it. I just been in my room like a little Neanderthal, like all greasy. And then Marcia came over. I said, just bring a side dish and some bread, sparkling water. We just kind of left it on the side, and we just had that moose meat. So now that my sisters have had some mindfulness, our audience out here is coming from Lower 48, from Canada. We have some Australians. We have some Maori, New Zealand. And then we have, for Healing the Spirit Worldwide, 30 countries are coming together. So they start to come and watch the Native Wellness Institute's Power Hour. And they don't even know where Alaska is. But I'd like just my sisters, just some closing thoughts. Like, what would you want, or what would you recommend? You know, like I just really have slept and dreamt. I'm just like, I recommend that you write your dreams down and you journal everything that you dream. Mm. And if you can't remember, that's okay. That you just have a goal for sleeping good enough so you can remember your dreams. So maybe we'll start with Marcia, and then we'll go to Carol. So Marcia, what, and I'm going to come closer. We're kind of like, we'll just all get close here. What would you like to say to our audience out there?
I would say go and talk to your elders, talk and get the stories, find out who you are. If you know who you are, then you can be more authentic, and you can't get knocked off the beam. Nobody can come at you with any kind of craziness that doesn't feel right. Trust your intuition, trust your gut. But know who you are, know who your ancestors are, and stand there in your ancestors, and you're safe. Once you're there, you're safe.
Wow, I just that brings tears. So Carol, what you thinking? What would you like to say?
I was thinking that be kind, be gentle to yourself. Sometimes we're really hard on ourselves, and find a group that will support that, so that we can, because it's that self-talk, that people talk themselves out of their potential a lot of times, and they talk themselves out of so many things. And if you can find people that can uplift you and learn to be compassionate with yourself. Humble. Be humble and teachable.
What is humble?
What is humble? I mean, be there once in a while.
I just learned what the 5 pillars of strength are for resilience. Has 5 pillars. The first one is self-aware. The second one is mindfulness. The third one is self-care. The fourth one is positive relationships, and the fifth one is purpose. And if you can focus on those things, become aware of who you are, tell the truth, tell your story. Everybody's got a story. Don't be ashamed of your story. My granny used to say, if you make a decision, don't regret it. You don't want to live a regretful life. Just commit to it and learn from it. And you know what? That's what I've done my whole life. And I've made some incredible commitments that I've learned a lot from. So, yeah, be your own resilience.
Anything else?
Yeah,
Carol?
I wanted to, because she mentioned self-esteem. So if we're not going to have self-esteem if we're not compassionate with ourselves. So if we don't learn to have some good self-talk, and to be kind and gentle, because I think that's the mistake a lot of people make. They base their self-worth on self-esteem and the accomplishments they made. And then as soon as they're not doing enough, they don't feel like they're enough when they are enough. And it just excites them and gets them anxious and things like that. So I think being gentle with yourself.
And be mindful of how you speak to your children.
Yes.
Don't ask them what were they thinking. Encourage them to think outside the box.
So as you can see, and we're just, just come a little bit closer, because I was just thinking what has kept me sober is sisterhood. I have the brotherhood, but the sisterhood, it has been the unwavering sisterhood. And so Native Wellness Institute, we have brought you just a little piece of the sisterhood in Fairbanks, Alaska.
Yeah, come on up. It's snowing.
Yeah, it's snowing right now, and spring will come, but I have to say, when Carol, when you were talking, because I could feel their energy right now. And so remember, your story is someone else's survival manual. And we hear Brother Gene say that all the time. And what kept me going in my office during the pandemic is one of the main affirmations was, it was my birthright to thrive and to have joy. And, people they'll say, how come you're laughing all the time? God, I have joy. I think even when I was locked up, I had joy. I was running in circles going, okay, I got to do better. I got to stay sober. I'm never coming back to this again. This is God's house, and I'm going to get out, and I'm never coming back again. You have that self-talk that Carol spoke of, that Marcia talked of. And so we're going to tell you, we don't say goodbye, but we're going to invite you again. So what's coming up in Alaska? Just tell us what's going to be happening in 2023, because if it costs $1,000 just to fly a few miles, whew, what is coming up on the horizon in Alaska?
Well, I can tell you from the city, we are sponsoring the Fairbanks Symposium on opioids and the impact that it has on reentry, crisis now, or mental health, and housing insecurity. It's going to be 4 days. It's going to be free. We're going to feed everybody every day. And then and we're going to have every resource in Fairbanks there, and this is for the community. That's why
What's
it's
the
not
date?
costing.
What are the dates?
May 15th, 16th, 17th, and 18th. And on the last day, we're going to have a free concert with Mark Brown and the Blues crew. Yeah, and Peter Captain's going to feed us Indian tacos before we start dancing. So I would love to see you there. Go online to the City of Fairbanks and register. It's free. Buy your ticket. There's hotel rooms. I got 3 extra bedrooms in my house. Come on up.
Hey, Carol, what's going to happen in 2023 in
Okay,
Alaska?
there will be a Midnight Sun Intertribal Powwow in July, and it's like 24-hour sunlight. And the group that's coming up, they're from Standing Rock. I don't have their name, or I would announce that. And then the World Indian Eskimo Olympics is the week after that.
And what are those dates?
The second week is the World Indian Eskimo, and the weekend before that is the powwow.
Oh, beautiful. Okay, so with that, I thank my sisters. We're going to move back into our gathering. Hey, but our brother just came into the room and he's doing a lot. And we've been talking sign language, like good morning and stuff. So without further ado, we welcome you from Native Wellness Institute to this week's Healing in Alaska. And we say, Kitaki to Matsuno. And I say, Kitsikako, mem. I love all of you.